So I had an idea that I might speak to this term or terms about, well, it's called the red pill. Probably heard about it. But there's other pills too. You can take a lot of pills, apparently. The red pill oftentimes is about red pilling about women. As a man, I think I took the red pill during my divorce, and it sounds worse than it is. I think it's just realizing that women are people too. They're flawed, you know. They're just as flawed as we are. They're more emotional, you know. And again, this is generalizing. There are women that are very good at emotionally regulating themselves. There are men that are really poor at it. And I'd say that, another red pill is that, women are kind and compassionate and loving more so than men. And I found that to be not true. I think men and women have equal amounts of all the negative traits that humans have. But I think what happens for men is that somehow we're given this message that women are sweet, kind, and more compassionate than men, and that we put all our trust in that, and then when it's not true, then we have this kind of breakdown in our thinking. It's like you thought the world was one way and now it's not that way, and it's hard for men to come to grips with that once they kind of see that. And I don't know who's been messaging that. Is it Disney? Is it romance? Rom-coms? What is the message that says, women are sweet and they'll never hurt you, and they'll, men are the cheaters and the liars and the abusers and all of the things that come with this kind of, being more physically stronger as a whole. Somehow that message is that men use that power unfairly. And again, I don't have a lot of statistics on this, but I think there are some to back up what I'm saying. I'm basically going off of what my own experience is. My own experience is that men, all they want to do is protect women. I mean, there's a reason why, it's women and children first, because that's just in our DNA as men, is to protect women and to protect children. And yeah, are there sociopaths out there that beat women and that, abuse women and whatever? Yes, there are. But as a whole, it just goes against our DNA to hurt women, I think, in general. And so I think that's kind of a myth, out there, that men are meaner or angrier or more emotionally unstable than women. I think we all have issues to deal with. And I guess maybe the manosphere, or whatever you want to call it online, would say that women are meaner and nastier and dirtier than men. And I don't I don't agree with that. I just think that we're all flawed. And I've had, in my life, I've had I guess a standard default position of trust in my life. And I don't know exactly where that comes from. Maybe that's because my mom and my dad basically, they did what they said they were going to do. They showed up when they said that they were going to show up. And I was brought up with stability, and the invoices were paid, and soccer practice, if it was meant to, if we signed up for it, we did it. And so I just got into this mode that I think through my life that people do what they say they're going to do. So I trusted people at their word. And I've run into multiple situations in my life where I've had to come to grips with people that they're not. That's not what they're like. Or that what they say is not what they do. And I just don't. I mean, do I have secrets? Do I keep things to myself? Do I not tell certain people certain things? Of course. Everybody does. But I consider myself very forthright and honest, and if I say something, I mean it. I think if you talk to any one of my friends or people that know me, I think that they would agree with me. I think that they would agree that that's true. Can I always meet all my commitments? No, I don't meet every single one of my commitments. Have I lied? Yes. I had a business, I don't know, I can't really call him a partner because we never actually had a contract, but was a man about 15 years ago, came into my business and said he was going to help it and grow it, and he had worked for a big corporation and had all this experience. He was good at what he did, which was, he was a good salesman. He just didn't know anything about my business, and he virtually destroyed it. I barely survived. I ended up having to move my rehearsal spaces from Minneapolis to St. Louis Park, which was a great thing, by the way. Eventually, if you are flexible and committed to a certain business idea and you can hang on, a lot of times things like that make you stronger, and surely that's the case in my case. And that was my first, I guess, red pill in a human sense, where I had this long, year-long relationship with this guy. And then when it all came to a head, I realized that a lot of what he was saying was a lie. He really didn't know what he was doing. He was really kind of just stealing from me. And it took me a couple of years, or maybe I still haven't processed it all, but it was absolutely devastating for me and my family. I lost a lot, basically, from a fairly sizable net worth to the negative numbers for a number of years. I'm not blaming him. Would I ever do business with him? No. Again, I would never, but I blame myself, that's me not seeing the warning signs, not seeing the red flags, not being blue-pilled, not being red-pilled, to the world. And then, I'm not going to go too much into my divorce because I do still have respect for my family and all that stuff, but suffice it to say that some of those same realizations happened to me during my divorce, and Am I shell-shocked or traumatized? A little bit, yeah, I am. I kind of went from not trusting people in business to now I'm very guarded when it comes to women, I'd say, although I really haven't been dating at all. I'm just not interested. Maybe it's because I'm scared. Maybe it's because I just value my freedom so much. But like my red pill in that sense is just for everybody, like watch what people do, not what they say. Take a long time to get to know somebody and create some smaller, I guess you could call them tests for people and see if they pass them. If they pass the trust test with you, then you can go on and create more of a relationship with that person. And I think generally, that's what red pilling is to me. It's this idea that you have a trust in the world, and then you move with that trust, and then that trust is broken, and then you take the red pill and you go, oh, okay, I see how life is. I mean, I see how flawed humans are. And I'm not, again, I'm not like saying that I have some huge amount of integrity that most people don't have. I just think that everyone has blind spots. Everybody has things that they want to hide from other people. And to know that and to walk in the world with that consciousness is really important. And, hopefully I can teach my kids that. And it's really a balance, because you walk too guarded and too skeptical, then you don't experience beauty on the same level, because there are good people out there. There is good things you can create, and things that you might not see or experience if you were too guarded. So you have to find a balance. And I guess I would say that, if I'm shifting from complete trust to complete distrust, I try to stay right in the middle, and probably am more on the distrusting side right now, because I've just seen so many people not follow through in my life. And that's one of the reasons why I'm shifting my trajectory on social media, because dealing with musicians, it's not that they're liars, or any creative person or anybody is a liar. It's just how do I say this? It's not there, and the things that need to be done in order to advance your career, any goal that you have, takes a tremendous amount of commitment and passion for what you're doing. It also takes a lot of courage to set boundaries, to have critical conversations with the people in your life, especially if you're in a band. The conversations that I did have with musicians almost inevitably ended up in the position where I would say, well, you need to have a conversation with your band, and this is what you need to say, and this is the kind of the ground rules you need to set with your band in order for you to have these people in your band. Otherwise, you need to find different band members. And it's the same with a relationship, an intimate relationship. That's one thing that I think I learned. If you don't have those boundaries, the people around you they don't feel safe around you, because they can push you and you're just like a tumbleweed blowing in the wind. You don't have any stance. In martial arts, you got to have a stance. You got to be firm, and you got to move when you need to move, but you need to stand still when you need to stand still. And I have done a lot of flexing in my life because I'm a very flexible person. And I think in general, I'm not as attached to things as some people are. Some people want the white clothes in the white hamper and the dark clothes in the dark hamper. And if somebody tells me that, I'm like, cool, whatever. They want the guitar player on the right side and the bass player on the left side, or vice versa. And I'm like, well, whatever, I don't care. Let's just play music. It's not that I don't have standards, it's just things that most things I'm flexible with. I can work with people, I can negotiate, I can come up with new agreements, but sometimes that flexibility in the long run can be seen as weakness, and it is weakness, especially if you do have an opinion about it and you don't say it, and you flex because you're just trying to go along to get along. If you need to say something about it, or if somebody's crossing your boundary, you need to exert that boundary and deal with the consequences. Sometimes when you say things to people, exert your boundaries, express your boundaries, you're going to have a bad reaction, and you're going to suffer temporary discomfort in that relationship. But long term, it's really the only way to go, because if you keep flexing and flexing and flexing, and pretty soon you're just a shell of a human being, and you're not getting what you want, and you're unhappy and dissatisfied. And then the other people around you don't consider you a safe person to be around, because they don't know, they can just push you around. And so, I've learned a lot just about vetting people. And if they can't handle it, well, then it's just kind of move on to the next thing. And loyalty and commitment is hard for people. And I understand that, because there's a lot of trauma in this world, and there's a lot of people were brought up in very unstable households, and so they take those experiences that they had when they were children, and they extrapolate it out into the rest of the world, and they do everything they can to protect themselves, because that's what they knew, that's what they had to do when they were kids. And a lot of people just don't deal with that trauma and that dysfunction throughout their life, and it just bleeds into the rest of their life, into their real life. And then when it comes to business or serious contractual obligations like a marriage, they make critical errors in their judgment, and then they suffer for it. Find somebody that has your goals, your level of commitment, your level of honesty, respects you as a man, as a human being, doesn't want to change you, doesn't want only material things from you. And I'm not saying that's happened in my marriage. I'm just saying that it's common, it's a common thing that folks, young men in their 20s are getting into relationships and marriages without doing the proper vetting, without doing the proper long-term testing of the relationship. Because, I mean, let's face it, it all comes down to children, you know, like most people get married because they want to have kids, you know, and it's so important to have a partner and to have your own maturity level very high before you enter into that sacred journey of raising children. Because, you know, just like you build your house on sand and it's gonna fall over, you know, you got to build your house on concrete, not for you, not for your partner, but for your children. But when there are children involved, I used to think that marriage was forever and my ex-wife would have been at my deathbed with me. That's what I saw in my vision of my life. It didn't really occur to me that people change and want different things as they grow. You grow apart from one another, and it's life is long and it's shifting and it's changing, and I hold nothing against anyone that looks at their partner and says, I don't want to be with you anymore, and leaves. That's fine. Except when there are children involved. I think you got to turn over every stone to figure out how to keep it together, and the best way to do that is to don't rush into it, you know, make sure that your partner has that long-term goal. And also, again, young men out there, a marriage is a financial contract. You know, you could get married spiritually and have a ceremony and make your commitments to one another spiritually and not enter into a financial contract with your partner. And that's fine and dandy too, if you're going to take the next step and enter into a financial contract, a marriage. Well, then not only do you have to have your values aligned with your raising of your kids, you have to have the similar ideas about how to raise your kids and how you're going to care for your kids, especially from the ages of 0 to 6, especially the ages of 0 to 2 when the mother is breastfeeding. I mean, I don't think my ex-wife was more than 100 yards from our kids, and I have 5 kids from 0 to 2 because she had to be there to feed them all the time. So, I mean, you got to create that stability so that they're provided for during that time, at least during the 0 to 2, because a mom can't really be very far from their kids. Yeah, you can breast pump, you can have milk, but that only really goes so far, you know, like, and it's a really difficult process. It's easier just to keep them where they naturally, keep the milk where it naturally is. But again, back to marriage, you know, that financial contract, you know, you need to be aligned with what your goals are and how you want to save and how you want to spend your money. And, you know, what's more important, a big house and a lot of debt, or little house and no debt? You know, like, there are a lot of things that I would do differently now that I'm older and understand. I can look back on the investments that I made that I no longer have, that if I would have been more diligent about those investments, I would be much better off now, you know, and if I would have delayed some gratification, that I would be a lot wealthier and a lot more stable than I am now. And You got to talk about those things, and you got to look into the future. I think when I got married, I was very much, well, we'll figure it out. It's just, we love each other and we'll figure it out. But that's not the way it works. It might work for you, but when you get into a relationship, both people have to be aligned to that. And it takes a while to figure that out in somebody. And I know people get worried when they're in their 20s and even 30s that they're getting too old to have kids. And I think some, especially women, kind of freak out at a certain age and say, I want to have kids. Okay, he's the best guy I can have kids with, so I'm going to have kids with them. And then, 10 years later, both men and women, they're like, I don't want to be with this person. I screwed up, And I just think that the conversation needs to center around the best thing for the kids. So I'll just go into a couple other things about pills. Red pill can be divorce. The whole thing, if you don't know, comes from the movie The Matrix. You want to take the blue pill and keep your delusions alive and not see the world for what it really is, and whatever, keep the status quo? Or do you want to take the red pill and have reality become crystal clear to you? And of course, Neo took the red pill and figured out that he was just basically like a slave in the Matrix, and he was being mined for his body, his consciousness, and all that stuff. So the red pill is a metaphor for just seeing life for what it is. But there are also other pills. So there's black pill, and that kind of comes from the conspiracy world. The red pill is the first pill you take when you start going down conspiracy rabbit holes, like how the government works and how the world works, and money and taxes and the mafia and illegal stuff that happens and all that stuff. You become aware that the world isn't what we're sold that it is. And that's a hard path. Some people take a little bit of the red pill and then they get down the rabbit hole and then they go the other way. They're like, I don't even want to know because it's just too painful. Well, I can tell you that I took the red pill fully, and I feel like I'm pretty aware of how the world works, and it's pretty disturbing. And when you get down to that red pill rabbit hole, you get to the bottom of it, there's another pill that you can take, which is the black pill, which is basically, well, if this is the way it is, there's no saving us. We're all going to hell. There's nothing I can do. I'm just going to take this black pill and not try to do anything about it and just try to live my life, and hopefully I'll get to the end of my days and I don't believe that there's nothing we can do. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I'm speaking to you right now, is because I'm just trying to put my little light out into the world, and I probably doubt I'm going to go into conspiracies much, because I don't have a bunch of statistics, and I don't want a bunch of people telling me that I'm wrong and putting studies from different universities and telling me that I'm crazy, or that I'm right wing, or whatever labels anybody wants to put on me, because I reject all of that. I reject right, left paradigm altogether. I just want to help individuals prosper in their life, Again, I'd love to see people outdoors. Nature has its own rules. And once you watch nature for a while, you realize that we're just a part of it, and we have to follow those same rules. And it's really beautiful. And we are children of the earth. We are children of the sun. We have to live within the physics that exist here on the planet Earth. There's another thing called white pilling, which is, I believe I can change. I believe I can do something about this. I believe I can, with my light, I can bring people to my awareness or the real reality of the world, and it will change. And I don't know if I'm white-pilled. I don't really think that I'm white-pilled, because I believe that this realm is this realm for a reason. It's like we're trapped, so to speak, we're in a physical realm, and we're spiritual beings. And the physical realm is, honestly, I think it's foreign to us. And we reject it, and we get attached to material things, and we get attached to our physical bodies, and we get attached to all kinds of things that make us sad, angry, upset. And it's designed, this realm is designed for you to suffer, for anyone to suffer. If you just go along to get along, you will suffer. But if you do the inner work of detachment, like the Buddha says, all attachment is suffering. And that's really what it's all about. And we all get attached to certain things, some of us more than others. But I think as you'll go through your life, you'll realize that you're attached to certain things, and when they don't happen, then you suffer. Then I still have 10 days left in the season, and my goal is to harvest one more deer so that I can give it to a friend, because someone requested that they wanted a deer, and I have enough meat, and so I'm gonna try to kill a deer for that person and give it to them. Maybe I'm just enjoying being outdoors and watching deer and, doing my best. I'm attached to my business succeeding. I'm attached to all my tenants paying their rent on time. And if they don't, then I get upset, or I can get upset. I've been doing this a long time, so I kind of have mitigated that emotional up and down about that. But I'm still attached. It still concerns me. I'm attached to my children being happy and succeeding and having a good life. And if they don't, I'm going to suffer for it. And I don't know how you can be not attached to your children's happiness. But there are ways to let that go and not have it impact you, because at some point your children's choices are their own choices, and you can't beat yourself up forever for the things that you did. You did your best. But most of us will be upset when our
Wisconsin
children make the wrong choices or they make mistakes. And I'll just close on this one because I'm almost to my destination, which is the word sin. And I love the word sin because it's an archery term. And it just simply means you missed the mark. And I respect Christians. I'm not a Christian, but I respect their beliefs, so don't hopefully this isn't blasphemy, but basically sinning means you missed the mark, and we're always sinning. That's why the Christian church often says we're all sinners. And we are. We are all missing the mark just slightly because we don't know how to become detached and equanimous. We as humans are attached to our emotions. We're attached to our thoughts. And we suffer because of that. I think that's really the red pill, is knowing that you're attached to the way your life is going, the way you want it to go, and when it doesn't go your way, you suffer. If you take the red pill, maybe it can eventually relieve your suffering because you see the world the way it is. You see this realm as just one big school, one big test to see how detached you can become from the outcomes of your mind and of your emotional state.